stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Would our acting clerk please call the roll of the members?
Certainly, Mayor. Councillor Hulteen.
Present.
Councillor Dozeman. Here. Councillor Ohm.
Here.
Councillor Stites.
Here.
Councillor Hoppy.
Present.
Councillor Weaver.
Here.
Councillor Nosler-Back. She's here on the screen.
You're on mute.
She's waving.
She's waving.
And Councillor Hutchinson.
Present.
Mayor, everyone is here.
Thank you. Let's see. Our next order is the. We have no minutes to approve. Are there any changes to note in the agenda? None noted, so we'll proceed as published. We have one proclamation, and I'd like to invite our sustainability coordinator, Mary Hester, to join me at the podium. How are you tonight? Good. Great to see you. Well, I'm really excited tonight to make a proclamation about the Mayor's Monarch Pledge on July 10th, 2023. Whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-generation migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans. And whereas both the western and eastern monarch populations have seen significant declines, within less than 1% of the western monarch population remaining, while the eastern population has fallen by as much as 90%. And whereas the city of Wheat Ridge recognizes that human health ultimately depends on well-functioning ecosystems, and that bioverse regions can better support food production, healthy soil, and air quality, and can foster healthy connections between humans and wildlife. And whereas every resident of Wheat Ridge can make a difference for the monarch in planting native milkweed and nectar plants to provide habitat for the monarch and pollinators in locations where people live, work, learn, and play. And whereas Wheat Ridge is participating in the Mayor's Monarch Pledge for the second year and is committed to taking meaningful action to protect the monarch butterfly and other pollinators. And whereas the city of Wheat Ridge has committed to a future of sustainable environmental outcomes with programs such as Sustainable Wheat Ridge, the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program, and Regenerate Wheat Ridge. Now therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, call upon the City of Wheat Ridge to join us and all of our citizens in recognizing July 10, 2023 as Mayor's Monarch Pledge Day and in the City of Wheat Ridge, and encourage all residents to participate in community activities that support and celebrate the monarch conservation efforts. Dated this 10th day of July, 2023. I'm really excited to do this. I looked at my restaurant for areas where we could plant some milkweed, and I think we found a few, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So I'll give this to you, and would you like to say a few words?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor Starker and City Council. As many of us may know, pollinators like the monarch butterfly are an integral part of our ecosystem and play some really important roles in food production and in biodiversity. And they've also seen a significantly declining population over the past decades, over 90% in some locations. And that really is largely due to the loss of habitat and declining access to milkweed, which is the only host plant for the monarch butterfly. And so they really can't complete their life cycles without it. And so like we were saying, this is our second year participating in the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And this year we're continuing to focus on education and creating new habitat for the monarch butterfly, as well as other our pollinators. So thank you so much for your continued support on this effort and just in general for all of your support for our sustainability programs in the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate you being here. Here, we're gonna get a photo. All right, thanks a lot. We are now at our public's right to speak, part of our agenda, and the members of the public may come and speak on any item that is not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under this public's right to speak. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this tonight, and I'll also say that we have a special study session right after this meeting, and we will take public comment on those agenda items. So on the regular meeting, anything not on the agenda, and on the study session, only those things on the agenda. I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone, if you're joining us online, you may raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting. We'll give it just a moment to see if anybody raises their hand. And I don't see anybody coming forward or joining us online, so we'll close that portion and go to our first order of business. This will be ordinances on first reading. Agenda item number 1, Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 17-2023, an ordinance reappointing presiding municipal judge Christopher Randall and approving a presiding municipal judge services agreement. At issue, the city's home rule charter provides for appointment of the municipal court judge for a term of 2 years. The current term of presiding judge Christopher Randall expired on June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill 17-2023, an ordinance reappointing presiding municipal judge Christopher Randall and approving presiding municipal judge services agreement on first reading. Order published, public hearing set for Monday, July 24, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting in City Council chambers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Would the clerk please poll the council?
I did not catch how.
She raised her hand.
Okay, thank you.
to
Then,
vote in
Mayor,
the
the
affirmative.
motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the motion passes 8-0, and thank you. We will go then to agenda item number 2. Councilor Hoppe, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to amend the Phase 3 contract for engineering consulting services for the improved Wadsworth project with the HDR Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $148,827.86 for a total contract amount of $3,122,924.69. At issue, a contract was previously awarded to HDR Engineering, Inc. for design services during construction and to serve as the engineer of record for the improved Wadsworth project. In December 2022, the City Council authorized an amendment to the construction contract for additional work between 35th and 41st Avenues, also referred to as Phase 2 construction. Design support services will be needed from HDR during the construction of this additional work. Additional funding is also required to account for design efforts associated with Phase 1 construction. An amendment to the Phase 3 contract with HDR in the amount of $148,827.86 is being presented for consideration to include this required work.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Maria DeAndrea, our Public Works Director, will give us a brief update on the project overall.
Okay, Director.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. We're pleased to announce that we've signed several additional change orders with the concrete contractor, Concrete Works of Colorado, to extend the work down to 35th Avenue. So the original scope of the project was from I-70 to 35th. As you all know, we had to scale that back because of funding, but we have, through the help of about $4 million in congressionally directed spending, we're able to move forward with that additional work and complete the scope of the original project all the way to 35th Avenue. So we are preparing some communication around that will go out to both the community as well as the property owners alongside there, once we have a more firm schedule from Concrete Works about what the timeline will be for how that work will occur. As you may recall, we feel that there's going to be benefits both from a timing perspective as well as a cost perspective by doing that work concurrently. So we're excited about that. And then otherwise, construction has been ongoing and is doing fairly well despite all the rain that we've been having. So they're about, probably within the next 3 weeks here or so, we're going to actually be moving northbound traffic onto the new concrete paved lanes. So going north on Wadsworth, you'll actually be on the new pavement. Then they'll move traffic, do some additional detour work to move traffic southbound, and then start to work on the west side of Wadsworth Avenue, or Boulevard. So that's about it. This item before you tonight will extend our contract with HDR so we can continue to answer questions related to the design and work on things that come up in the field. So we thank you for your consideration and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to invite the public to speak on this item. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you are here in council chambers and would like to speak, please come to the podium, and I'll ask our deputy city manager if anyone's raised their hand to speak online. Looks like no one has, so we'll give it just one more moment or so, and I don't see any hands going up. So we will go to questions from council of staff. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the update, Director. So 2 questions. One is, what is the anticipated timeframe for the completion of the project? I actually have 3 questions. That's the first one.
We're still figuring that out with Concrete Works. They're evaluating that, their schedule. We will have more of a firm idea probably within the next week or so, and then we'll communicate that to both the public and council.
Okay. Yeah, sort of an extension of that. As you know, the project has changed, and I'm sure in this room, like, we've been tracking that, but is there any plans to do any outreach now that we have a firmer sense to maybe reach back out, not just in our broadcast sense, but doing mailings to the businesses, or what are the communication plans for that once the schedule's more readily understood?
Yes, so I think we're going to take a multifaceted approach. So obviously updating our What's Up Wheat Ridge page. The mayor participated in a recent video shoot, so we're putting a video together to communicate this as well. And then we'll probably do a press release as well as mailed notices to the immediate area. So multi-pronged approach.
Great. And then so that was actually one question. The second question is, what's the sequencing in terms of, I imagine the complexity of the CFI intersections.
Yeah.
So what is that construction going to look like? Because the traffic movement on Wadsworth, I think, is being handled really well, but the feeders at 44th in particular, and then 138. So what's the sequencing of that?
Yes, so most likely they'll leave out portions of concrete. So it'll continue to act like a typical intersection until towards the very end. Okay. So we want to keep those signals in place in their current configuration, and the lanes for the most part in their current configuration until the very end. And then right before they're ready to start that final work, if you will, and then move that traffic over into that ultimate wave, then we'd go through some additional efforts to communicate to the public. So there shouldn't be a lot of impact to traffic in terms of having to maneuver those CFIs until the very end.
Okay, great. And then the last question, the connection to the Kerr Creek is so beautiful, and I am so eager. When does that open up? Is it when the project is done, that east side connection, or will it open up? Is the bike ped infrastructure that's going to be in place on the east side, is that going to open as the traffic shifts, or does that wait till the end of the project?
We're discussing that right now. Part of that is when we take ownership, if you will, of certain elements, and then that starts the clock, if you will, for warranty period. So we're talking about that. If we're comfortable taking that on, then we will open that up to the public. If not, then we'll probably keep that closed for a while longer.
Okay, great, thank you.
Additional questions from council of staff? Okay, thank you very much. May I have a motion on this item, Councilor Hoppy?
I move to amend the Phase 3 contract for engineering consulting services for the improved Wadsworth project with HDR Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $148,827.86 for a total project cost of $3,122,924.69.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hulteen. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the Deputy City Manager please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 38, 2023, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2023 Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $95,000 for the purpose of making payments for additional expenses related to the Ward TOD multimodal projects. At issue, this requested action proposes amending the existing contract with the design consultant SEH to provide additional services for 2 projects in the Ward Station area. Specifically, the Ward TOD Transit-Oriented Development Multimodal Project consists of construction of a pedestrian bridge, plazas, and trail improvements in the Ward Station area. After beginning the environmental work for this project, several additional tasks were identified by the design consultant that are beyond the scope of work previously authorized. In addition, staff wishes to restart the 52nd Avenue pedestrian connection to finalize design in the next year. A budget supplemental is needed to provide funding for these unbudgeted expenses in the amount of $95,000.
Thank you very much. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Another quick update from Maria DeAndrea.
Okay, Director DeAndrea.
Yes, so just a little bit on the status of these projects. So the Ward TOD multimodal project, which consists of the pedestrian bridge over the light rail tracks, the plazas, and then various trail improvements. We're at the stage where we anticipate receiving 60% complete plans probably within the next week or so. We also have a number of other entities that need to weigh in and comment on this project, including the Public Utilities Commission, the State Historic Preservation Office, Environmental Resources, RTD, BNSF. And so the various environmental documents are going to be shared with them relatively soon. And then once the city has reviewed the plans, we'll be providing those to them as well for comment. So we are working through the design process and hope to wrap that up probably early part of 2024 so that we can go to construction probably sometime mid part of 2024, excuse me. And then the other piece of this is the council had directed staff to look at a sidewalk connection along 52nd Avenue from Tabor Street east to our city boundary with the city of Arvada. And so they're also in the process of, SEH is designing that. And we expect to see those plans come back shortly where we can then do some outreach to the neighborhood to get their input on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I will invite the public to speak on this item. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you're here in chambers, you may do so by coming to the podium, and we'll see if anyone is online, and if you're raising your hand, we will bring you in to have you speak, and I don't see anybody, so we will close that portion and go to any questions from council of staff. Okay, seeing none, Councilor Dozeman, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 38, 2023, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2023 Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $95,000 for the purpose of making payments related to the Ward TOD multimodal projects.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the Deputy City Manager please poll the council?
And Mr. Mayor, that passes unanimously.
And Counselor Nosler Beck has voted in the affirmative. And the motion carries. Correct? Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 4. Counselor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion to award a contract for the Recreation Center roof replacement project to Independent Roofing Specialists, LLC of Commerce City, Colorado, and approve subsequent payments in the amount of $926,818,000 with a contingency amount of $46,340 for a total not to exceed the amount of $973,158. At issue, the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center opened in February 2002. The existing roof, installed in 2001, is now 22 years old and is overdue for replacement. The roof consists of approximately 47,500 square feet of roof area. The existing roof will be removed and replaced with new 80 mil TPO thermoplastic polyolefin roofing system throughout this project. In response to a request for proposals, 8 proposals were received in June 2023. Staff evaluated the proposals based on a pre-established criteria and are recommending that the city enter into a contract with Independent Roofing Specialists, LLC of Commerce City, Colorado, in the amounts of $926,818 plus staff managed contingency of $46,340 for a total not to exceed the amount of $973,158.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council and is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Back to Maria.
Okay, Director DeAndrea.
Yeah, so just briefly to touch upon the schedule, we're hoping to start the work likely sometime around closure of Rec Center, just because we'll be working on the roof. Sometimes we have to evacuate the building underneath in case there's any concerns with the structural issues. So we want to take advantage of that week of closure in August to at least start this work. Dan Byers, who's in the audience, is our facilities manager, and he put together this RFP and has been working closely with the proposed contractor on the schedule, and then we'll be coordinating that, of course, with the Rec Center staff and communicating that to the public as well.
Very good. Before we go to questions from council, I'll open this up to the public. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this, but if you're here and would like to speak, now is your opportunity. And if you're online, you may raise your hand, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. And I don't see anybody coming forward or raising their hand. So we'll go now to questions from council of staff on this item. Any questions? Seeing no questions coming, Councilor Weaver, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you may. I move to award the Recreation Center roof replacement project and approve subsequent payments to Independent Roofing Specialists, LLC, in the amount of $926,818 with a contingency amount of $46,340 for a total not to exceed an amount of $973,158.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Ohm. Just make sure it's all fair. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the Deputy City Manager please poll the council? And Councilor Nosler Beck is voting in the affirmative.
And Mr. Mayor, that motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. That completes our regular agenda items. We will now go to my agenda and staff reports. Mr. Goff, or city managers matters.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a special study session coming up, so I'll defer any comments till later.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to our city attorney's matters.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing tonight, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll go with, start with our elected officials matters, and I see that our city clerk, Clerk Kirkpatrick, is online, and I will start with Clerk Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing new to report this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. And we will go next to Councilor Nosler Beck, who is joining us online. Any elected officials matters tonight?
Hi, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and go now just because I don't know how long I'll be on for the study session. But I just wanted to say hi to everybody and
Okay.
thank
you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, it wasn't done. Sorry, I just got a little emotional. Just wanted to thank everybody for all your love and support. But let me get it together here really quick. I just wanted to also, before I dive into just a quick update on some things that have been going on, for me, I just wanted to also quickly welcome my our newest residents in Wheat Ridge in District 4. My parents just moved to Wheat Ridge, so I'm really excited to be able to welcome them. They just moved in about 3 weeks ago, so they're nearby and close by, which is also kind of tying into my next little update here. I just wanted to let folks know who don't know that I've been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and I'm in the process of getting my treatment figured out. The good news is that this is treatable, and that it's something that once I get on the other side of it, I'm going to feel great. But currently, I'm probably going to be joining my council meetings from home because I feel pretty crummy and pretty tired. And so I'm just asking for lots of grace and also prayers right now as I try to navigate this piece, but also my family does too. But it means a lot to me that I can still participate and vote tonight in these council meetings and do things that really matter. And so I appreciate the opportunity to still be able to participate and serve this incredible community that has really just showed up in incredible ways for me and my family during this time. So you guys are used to me all crying from the dais, so just doing it again. But thanks so much for letting me join tonight, and it was really awesome to see everybody, even if virtually.
Well, Councilor, we missed you. We missed your personal presence with us tonight, but I know that on behalf of myself and all the council members and our staff and city, everyone throughout the city, we wish you the best of luck in your treatments and a full and long and recovery. So we're hanging in there with you, and please let us know if there's anything we can do. So thank you very much, and I hope the tears are not catchable, so because I'm susceptible. So, but anyway, thank you very much. Okay, Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. Noslerbeck. We miss having you here in person, but it's really great to see you. I guess I just want to speak to what she just said, and I want to recognize that this seated council, like we just, I think, are incredibly civil to one another, and I think we have so much respect for one another, and it's just not something that you see in other councils. I think we have something really special, and it goes beyond just our ability to respect one another and work with one another. I think we actually care about each other in our lives when we're not on the dais, and I think that shows up in our work. And I think Wheat Ridge has something like really unique, and I value it, and I know our community benefits greatly from it. And I'm glad, Val, that when we need to support one of ours, I'm glad we're able to be there for you. So but you guys are probably also really curious how Happiness Gardens is doing. So the report is that the sugar snap peas are kind of on their way out because it's getting a little bit hot. So if you happen to walk by there, feel free to grab one. They're very good. The tomatoes are starting to ripen, and there's actually some squash coming forward. And the bees continue to be doing really, really well. And there's a lot of beautiful flowers, not just vegetables. So again, if you haven't gone to Happiness Gardens, the report right now is there's a lot going on. So maybe you'll see me there. Thanks.
Well, I know if they didn't get really pounded by the hail, then there's more happiness at Happiness Gardens. So congratulations. Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I do have an announcement that I am not running for re-election. So I'm giving plenty of time with this vibrant community to at least get 2 people who would get on the ballot so that the voters can have a choice of a city council person. So, I just want to put that out there, not wait till the last minute. And hopefully, we will have some people step up, because I just kind of am not for when city council just appoints people on city council. I just don't think that's democratic. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Hutchinson, and I want to tell you how much I've appreciated serving with you, and I hope that you would continue on, but appreciate your announcement. So thank you very much. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to echo Councilmember Holtein's comments in regards to my colleagues. And it is really great to see my co-council member from District 4's face today. I know how difficult it is to remain steady in these kind of situations, but you have done so, and that is why I believe your business and your nonprofit is called that, is because you really have maintained such a wonderful decorum, not only on council, but just in your personal life, and you show up for our community, and I'm glad to hear that our community has shown up for you, and welcome to your parents. I know how important it is for them to be nearby. I'm very lucky to have the tribe that I do in my parents, and so I'm happy to hear that they're nearby. I have several other updates, but I think I'll leave that for following our study session as far as some of the events that we will be seeing in Wheat Ridge over the next week. But really great to see you, Councilmember Nosserbeck.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, and it's nice to see you, Val. Thinking really good thoughts for you. There will be, and this might bring your mood up, Val, there's going to be goats at Lewis Meadows this Wednesday. If anyone wants to come out, Regenerate Wheat Ridge will be out there doing their regenerative soil workshop. What? No? Am I not supposed to talk about the goats? Okay. On Wednesday at, I believe it's 8:30, through Regenerate Wheat Ridge, you can sign up, and if it's full, we've got a whole park. So if you want to come learn about how goats help with not only mowing, but dealing with weeds, and how ruminants do a really great job of redeveloping soil throughout our state in larger rural areas as well, and urban areas, come on out for an hour on Wednesday morning in Lewis Meadows, and I'll be out there with Park and Rec. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thanks, Val, for showing and telling us. It takes a lot of courage being transparent. I'm definitely in support and happy to see that you're going to be joining us, by Zoom. Just keep up the strength. I know you're a fighter, and happy to see your sincerity of, we're really connected in this community, and hope to see more of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just also wanted to say it's so good to see your face. Oh, see you sending it. And I also admire your strength and continuing to serve the community. And I'm happy that we have an option for you to be able to join us virtually. And we will definitely be sending all of our love and prayers to you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been said, but Ms. Nosserbeck, we miss you. And I know it's been said, but you've been a big mainstay in this community now, and I'm glad to see the community giving back. But we want to make sure that we keep you. so get better. We miss you here, and Ms. Hutchinson, we'll miss you on the dais as well. I've enjoyed working with you and gotten a lot from you the last few years, so appreciate that. I did have the opportunity about a week or so ago to meet my co-counselor, Ms. Weaver, in the park on a rainy day down at Lewis Meadows, and she brought the goats. And I wasn't the only, it was myself and my family, but there were 3 or 4 other families out braving the rain. They all wanted to see the goats. So the park is absolutely packed at like 6 o'clock in the evening. It is one of the coolest things. The goats bring a lot of people into that community, and so we're very grateful to Five Ridge Farm. I was at Prospect Valley meetup yesterday for the 4th graders coming together from Color Strand, and I introduced a few people, and they, oh, you're one of the city council people, and they go, are you the one with all the goats? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not the cool one. She lives up the street, but so definitely appreciate Councilor Weaver having her goats in the park, because it is a big part of our community. So as back to school comes back in, unfortunately for parents and kids alike, if you can find your school supplies in Wheat Ridge, you should definitely buy them here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll go ahead and reiterate what I said earlier and wish Councilor Nosterbeck that we're all thinking about you. And I'll reiterate that tears are infectious, so I'm not going to go too far down that path, but you know we're thinking about you. I want to thank the folks who joined me on Saturday. We had a large group at Vinola's for coffee with the mayor. Had some great discussion, and really a lot of things. You'd be surprised how many great ideas and insights you get churned up when you get people talking about things that matter to them, and they're really creative. I want to thank Local Works and Stevens Elementary School and the Jefferson County Public Library. Councilor Ohm and I were mystery readers the other day for a really delightful group of young people, and we read some of the books that our children had enjoyed growing up, and it was really a pleasure for me. So I want to thank you very much for the experience, and it was really a rewarding time. So that's all that I had tonight. Is there any other business that we should conduct before we close this session and move to our study session? And hearing none, we will adjourn this meeting. And is there any reason why we wouldn't go straight into our study session? Anybody need a break of any kind? So let's call our study session to order. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a couple items on our special study session this evening. Our first one is a very brief update from Mr. Westberg on our 2023 Jefferson County Multi-Hazard Plan Annual Report.
Great.
It's a lot of information. I asked him to keep it fairly brief. It doesn't mean it's not important information, and Mark will explain why it's important, but he's going to give a quick presentation, and if there's any questions, he'll be here to answer those.
Okay. Mr. Westberg.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. I haven't prepared much. I did not do a PowerPoint. You'll all be very disappointed. We're part of the Jeffco Multi-Hazard Committee, the all-hazard committee that they have there. And so we adopted the plan. The plan was updated back in 2021. The council adopted that, so thank you for that. It's really important to our floodplain program. We get almost 10% of our points for our CRS program through by having this plan and keeping it active. And so we're supposed to update it every year. We're a little behind this is basically the 2022 update. So we're a little slow getting it done, but the Jefferson County folks are the ones that sort of manage the plan for us. And so we try not to complain too much because they're doing a great job of taking care of everything. They opted this year to try to keep the official annual report really short and just talk about all the grants that people have gotten. And there's been a lot of wildfire grants, as you can imagine, for Jefferson County, for not us, but for all the folks that are west of us. And those are really, really critically important for them to mitigate the fires that have happened and try to prevent fires from becoming like they've been the last few years. From our standpoint, I included just a little attachment in the report that you guys can look through to get an update on where we are on all of our specific projects that are shown in the plan. A lot of those are floodplain projects, and we're just kind of waiting to get them things started, but some other things are happening and moving forward. So we think we're making great progress on the things we're doing, and it's all stuff we're just doing anyway. So we're just taking credit for all the things that we normally do. So it's not a lot of extra stuff for us to do. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mark, do you want to speak to the importance of the keeping our rating at a certain level for the insurance?
I can. We are a class, I turned in all our stuff at the end of April, and I'm still waiting to hear, so I'm getting a little anxious. It's been like 6 weeks, and they haven't responded back. You're good. I fully expect them to respond back that we're good. We're a Class 5 CRS community. We're in the top, I think, 20% now. A lot more communities have become CRS communities across the country, and in particular in Colorado, become Class 5s. A lot of our neighboring jurisdictions are Class 5s. What that does for us, it gives all of our residents a 25% discount on their flood insurance premiums. And that is a really big deal. I talk to folks at least once a month, if not more often, about their flood insurance premium and what's going on with that. And FEMA's entered a risk rating 2.0, which there was never a 1.0, but they're calling it 2.0 anyway. So they've entered into that, and premiums are going up. In most cases, those are capped at about 18% a year. But if your premium is $1,000 this year, then you're going to be at $1,018 next year. And then the 18% added from the 1,018. So it's a cumulative thing. It's one of those curves that starts out relatively flat and starts steepening. And they're in that until they hit what's called full risk rate, which is what FEMA's determined they ought to be paying for flood insurance given the amount of risk they have. And we've got some properties that will probably hit $20,000 to $30,000 as a full risk rate. Now, it will take them a very long time to get there, but that's why it's so critical that we give our folks, keep this 25% discount for our folks.
All right, thank you. Before I invite the council to ask questions, I had one question, and looking at we're a Class 5, correct?
Yes.
And there's a sentence that says there's only one community in Colorado that's a Class 5 or above a Class 5.
Yes, that's Fort Collins.
Okay.
They had people die in 1997 during those floods, if
Right.
you were around to experience that.
Yeah.
And they threw a lot of money at acquiring properties so that they could not have people in the floodplain as much. We are fortunate that we have a lot of our floodplain is the Greenbelt. So we get almost half of our, I talked about 10% of our CRS points because of the plan. We get half of our CRS points because of having most of the property under city ownership and having it as a dedicated open space area.
And I'll just point out that we were able to take a property out of the floodplain not long ago, correct? With the help of the Mile High Flood District?
Yes.
Or at least a
Yes.
portion of a property?
A little piece of their property
Okay.
became ours and not theirs.
Yes, that's right, okay. I'm sorry to hog the questions. Questions from council. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to reiterate that there are only 10 other communities in Colorado and 199 communities nationwide that are rated at a Class 5, and we're a Class 5, so that is a pretty top achievement. My question is, to become a Class 4, staff is exploring preparing a watershed master plan. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
So there's different levels as prerequisites, and Class 4 is one of those things that has a host of prerequisites. We meet almost all of those except that we don't have a watershed master plan. The master plans that we have in place that Mile High Flood District prepares don't meet that requirement. And so there's an additional step we have to take to do that. And we just quite frankly have been so busy we haven't had time to sort of explore it. I have over the years gathered, finally after like asking for 4 years, somebody sent me a sample watershed master plan. So it's a matter of just finding the budget to do that and then finding just the time to do that, to basically put together an RFQ to hire a consultant to then prepare that watershed master plan for us. I need to reach out to a couple of folks that have done, like, again, there's only one community in Fort Collins that has in Colorado that has a watershed master plan, and that's Fort Collins. So find out maybe what that cost is to prepare that initial one. They're a little bigger than we are, so it won't quite be apples to apples, but it's a fairly intensive effort. And then once you do that, with all the other things, like I said, we meet most of the other requirements for a Class 4. We'll make sure we close those gaps. And you get a lot of points for having a watershed master plan, and we're about halfway to Class 4 already. So there's a chance just doing a watershed master plan will actually make us a Class 4 community.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Dozeman.
Can you outline some of the benefits that would come with being Class 4?
The Class 4, you get a 5% more of a discount. So instead of 25%, everybody would get 30% off their premiums. There are that's the most practical benefit. The other thing is all the things you're doing to become a Class 4 just help to make the community more resilient and better protect it from floods. All the things we're doing to be a Class 5, we think, helps the community be more resilient and better protected from floods.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Westberg? Councilor Weaver.
Thank you so much for your presentation. This is not having to do with the flood plan. I was just curious with the different kinds of rains that we're getting that are more concentrated and with the amount of sort of different drainage watersheds that we have in Wheat Ridge, has there been any problem or do we need more signage about, I've just noticed that at least in the last 3 months, it has seemed very much like other places I have lived in the country that have flash floods and these, these low troughs become very dangerous. And I'm of course just thinking about Lena Gulch, which you and I have had lots of conversations about. But it grows to 50 feet across. And of course, I have kids staring at Lena Gulch saying, we should take a raft down that. And it just sort of, scares me. And I was just kind of curious if at what point do we need to start thinking about education around having a lot of new people in our community that maybe aren't used to living around the fast water that can happen? Am I making any sense at all?
Yes, yes, and we do have a fair amount of information on our website if people want to just search for floodplain. Actually, you can just go to the website and go to How Do I? Click on that, and then there's a link right to the floodplain. You have to have just 2 clicks to get to it to get points. So we do. So you click on floodplain, and there's a lot of information there about what to do and what not to do. I would have used a canoe, quite frankly, but more maneuverable. But we're rafters out here, right? And then I have in the past gone out to some advanced science classes at like middle schools and things like that and done presentations to those folks about what floodplains are and that kind of stuff. Part of the reason that City Council adopted the no camping in the floodplain ordinance a year or so ago was that very issue that, somebody died up in Lakewood. There was a recent death also on one of the floodplains. I don't remember which one it was now, where somebody was they fell asleep and a storm came along and washed them downstream. We've dodged a lot of bullets. Lena Gulch is, I'm going to say, relatively safe because it's got that big dam upstream, so that we're going to have warning. We can send our emergency services folks out to warn people to get out of those, and we have the sirens all over town, mostly concentrated along our floodplains. We've dodged a bullet on Clear Creek. We haven't had a 100-year flood still in over 100 years, even with the flows going down. So it's a really unique watershed because it's so long and thin. We're going to have just the exact right kind of storm for that to become an issue for us. But we had a death on Clear Creek within Wheat Ridge a few years back where someone, just fell in and they couldn't get him recovered quick enough. So it definitely is a hazard.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Westberg. Appreciate all your work on doing emergency planning. It's sometimes really glad you do that. So thank you very much. We'll go to our second item on the study session, and this is about the city clerk's office staffing capacity. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are several of us here this evening. As you know, our city clerk is online. He's at a city clerk conference out of town, but he is joining us this evening, so I'll turn it over to him in a bit. But just to introduce this item, it's been no surprise to many of you that our organization has become extremely busy. We talked about this at great length at our retreat back in January. Wheat Ridge is no longer the city it was 10, 20, 15, or even 10 years ago. We've grown up. We're kind of in a new chapter. We've seen record amounts of commercial and residential development. Our councils, you and past councils, and our citizenry are very engaged and active. We've received millions in grants and federal funding for public infrastructure projects, and our list of new projects and initiatives continues to grow. I believe we've done our best over the years to continue to meet these growing demands with the resources available. However, these new demands are outpacing our current capacities and have been for some time. At Council's direction, the city clerk and staff are here this evening to present you with some options to increase capacity within the city clerk's office to meet some of these current demands that I mentioned. This is a conversation I will be having with all of our departments across the city as these demands are impacting all of our work groups. But as I mentioned, Mr. Kirkpatrick is online, our city clerk, and he has a few words he would like to say also. Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Well, just to give a little flesh to what Patrick has just said, the number of liquor license meetings, the amount of renewals, and the number of, shall I say, overdue renewals, et cetera, has dramatically increased, not because our businesses aren't holding up their end in 95% of the cases, but because the state legislature has recently changed several provisions in the liquor law. So for instance, you can now hold a 3-day festival for tasting wine, which of course has to be regulated, et cetera. That combined with the fact that we're getting more and more requests for public information. That number went way down, obviously, during the pandemic, and we streamlined the way those core requests are handled. That reduced the number that were coming in for a while because we taught people how to find what they wanted online on the city's website themselves. But in the last 6 months, the number of those requests has ballooned again. There are, I believe, 264 municipalities in the state, each of which is required to have a city clerk. It is the only position in a municipality that is mandated by law. When we elect the clerk, we allow the citizens to make a determination who will sit in this chair, obviously. The issue becomes municipal clerkship is a profession by any definition of the word. And it takes years, I can say from personal experience, to learn the ins and outs and details of the law as it relates to a long list of different services and public record activities that we engage in. The city of Wheat Ridge has a tradition of continuing to elect the clerk. And although I am only one of 5 elected clerks across the state, the future in Wheat Ridge looks like we will continue to elect the clerk. The issue then becomes, how do you get a professional clerk to help run the clerk's office and perform those tasks which require all of that professional knowledge and skill? And I think this plan makes a great deal of sense in terms of hiring another clerk, deputy clerk, if you will. Mr. Eaton, of course, spends most of his time on liquor licenses, and a new deputy clerk would be working on all those other things other than liquor licenses. Obviously, there are some details to be worked out, job descriptions to be written, etc. But going forward, I think the residents of the city will be better served. Businesses will find it easier to get information, and our residents will see more transparency if we have a professional staff person when new clerks come to town, new clerks come to office for one reason or another. And this looks to me like an opportune time to do that, so that we will have that professional around starting in 2024 to help with all of that. And I am delighted to answer any questions from the mayor or council.
Thank you very much, Clerk Kirkpatrick. So that's.
Yeah, we're all
that-
here. Our attorney, Jerry Dahl, and
Okay.
Ali Sheck, our deputy city manager, are all here to help answer any questions.
Okay, let's go to questions from council. Starting with the Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I before I was even a city councilor, I had different interactions with the clerk's office, and it's true what Clerk Kirkpatrick says, that that is an office that should have a trained professional in it. And I understand that at like the beginning of Wheat Ridge, over 50 years ago now, that having it as an elected official was probably the right way to go. But we are becoming a much more multifaceted, diverse community with massive more amounts of duties that are continually going through that office. And to make sure that these are the things that are going through that office, are handled by a, professional. But then also, I think having the elected representative, like we do with the treasurer's office, is also important for our community and in the way that our community started. Everybody thinks it was important to have an elected. So there were a couple of options in the staff memo. And, one of them was add a professional clerk to the city clerk's office while maintaining also the elected clerk position. And in that scenario, council would add a professional position to manage the day-to-day business and supervise the staff. And then that position would report to the deputy clerk manager or similar senior staff. And so, in my opinion, out of all the options, there's one where it's like, continue with what's happening, but I think that we just need more staffing in there. And I will point out that Inglewood has a population of 33,000+, and Wheat Ridge has a population of 32,000+, and Inglewood has 4 professional staff in their clerk's office, and we have 1. So it's very obvious that this office has been needing some help and some support for quite a while. And so, continuing with the current staffing structure is not something that that I would like to follow through with. And replacing the elected clerk with a professional city clerk in future years, that could happen. That could still happen in the future, but I think our next best step would be to add a professional clerk while maintaining our elected clerk.
Thank you, Councilor Hoppy. We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilwoman Hoppy. I think that option 3 is the best way to go. I think, 50 years ago when the charter was written, or 52 years ago, or whatever it was now, all the council positions, all the elected positions looked different. We had a mayor that was, not that you're not a virile man, a strong mayor, right? The city manager now is more in charge of the city day-to-day operations, whereas back then the mayor was more in charge. Back then, I believe the council members were aldermen and in charge of different departments in the city, I believe. So the fact that we look to maybe in the future change the role of the clerk as an elected or not, that remains to be seen. But I do think that we've seen quite a bit more demand on this department specifically over the last few years. Our citizens have availed themselves of this department several times. So I think getting these guys a little bit more extra help. We've also seen liquor licenses. We've seen a lot more restaurants open. So adding another position to this department seems to make a whole lot of sense. I guess my question would be, do we look to change the salary or change the compensation of the elected clerk moving forward if we add this other person into this department? But for now, I support option number 3.
Okay, another one for door number 3 as our city attorney brings us. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also support option number 3 or door number 3 or however we're calling it. This, amongst just looking at the obvious when you see the table that shows the amount of support other similarly sized communities are receiving. It's apparent that, you know, if nothing else, it comes through there. But I think the other side of it too is that this is a public service facing position. A lot of people who, you know, a lot of times it's actually like the first contact people might have with our community and our city, and they're coming to that office to take care of a really important business that affects like their, you know, their work or their quality of life or something that's important to them. So I think, you know, making sure that that office is properly resourced, both so that we can be, you know, able to accommodate people, but also give the type of, you know, customer service that I know is a standard that our staff strives to achieve. So I think properly resourcing the office is really important. And as we move through the next 4-year cycle, I am very open to the possibility of revisiting whether that should be an elected position. But I think today, this is a pretty straightforward decision to me, and I'm very strongly supporting option number 3.
Okay. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if we're adding a professional clerk to the staff, that would bring us up to 2. So that would be the deputy city clerk and 1 additional staff member. And then would we be changing who they report to or who they are supervised by as far as bringing that under administrative staff as opposed to the current structure where the elected clerk manages them?
Correct. That's our proposal.
Okay. So I think maybe if Clerk Kirkpatrick could speak to the managerial administrative side of it as far as staffing and what your preference or recommendation based on your experience in that role, would it be better to have staff manage the additional clerks?
Well, I think, thank you for asking my thoughts about this. The provision in the city charter that specifies that the city clerk's staff is supervised by the elected city clerk presents us with a need to address that in a way that complies with the charter. I think the elected clerk should be making decisions that are impactful to the businesses and the residents of the community, and in a similar way to what Treasurer Chris Miller does now. I think the elected clerk, at least for a while, is going to have to be more involved in the day-to-day until a new professional staff person is up to speed. I would like to see a situation where the elected clerk approves, for instance, staff performance reviews before they are official and final. But I think the day-to-day feedback would come from not only the newly selected person, but also from the deputy city manager's office. I know it's neither fish nor fowl, but I'm one of those people who believes you read the law and then you implement it. And I would love to hear what Mr. Dahl has to say about this topic.
Mr. Dahl.
Happy to respond. The City Clerk Kirkpatrick is right in referencing the charter, and it says that the city clerk shall supervise the staff under his jurisdiction. But it does not oblige the council to provide for staff to the extent under his jurisdiction. To the extent council chooses to provide and fund staff throughout the city based upon recommendations of the city manager for staffing in any department, council funds those staff positions and chooses how they're to be supervised based upon the organizational structure that the city manager brings to you. So to make it short, you are not obliged, staff in that office is not obliged to report to the city clerk. you can make that determination of what staff you're going to provide, and are they under the city clerk's jurisdiction, or are they under, pardon me, the city manager's jurisdiction as other personnel are. So while it makes them available to the city clerk, if you assign them to him, you are not required to assign them to the city clerk by virtue of the charter. So that leaves you open to designing other arrangements. And the city clerk has mentioned, some of his interests in how another arrangement might be structured. And that's something that I expect if you go with door number 3, the city manager's office would flesh out in terms of how it would propose to be staffing, paying, et cetera, those offices. I think it is important that as a city employee, however, they're subject to the personnel policies, there's benefits, guidelines, disciplinary provisions that need to be available for all of the city's employees. And that's why I think it's important that the city manager, if you go to door number 3, has the freedom to be able to design that staffing program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Gozman, follow up.
Thank you. So just so that I can summarize that, my understanding of that, we would be changing the structure from the jurisdiction being under the city clerk to under staff. So what are the issues with it being under the jurisdiction of the city clerk?
Well, one of the issues, I think, and it has come up occasionally over the years I've been here, and that is, well, what about personnel discipline? What about just benefits programs? How does that fit in? If the city manager is not supervising and the city clerk is, then the aspects of the personnel policies involving discipline, for example, there's a real question as to, well, how is that done? And nevertheless, they walk and look and operate in many ways as city employees, but aren't supervised in the same way as city employees. And that, over the years, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Something that's constant, however, is that there's uncertainty about how that position today, tomorrow, next week, next month is supervised and governed. And I think that's something that should be made clear.
So in its current structure, is the hiring and firing of that position, is that the responsibility of the elected clerk?
At the moment, I think that's true, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so the deputy clerk has been historically hired to whoever was in that position at the time?
Yeah,
Or was it undertaken by staff?
By the elected. I think Mr. Dahl hit it on the head when he said it's the consistency, which is I think, been the struggle. The elected position's up every 4 years, and staff has to, whoever that staff is working for that elected official has to deal with that, manage that, and you never know who you're gonna. I think the only requirement in our code and charter is that they're 18 and live in the city to run for that office. So it's more about bringing again, this is not about Steve being professional or not professional, but it's having a consistent professional management of staff in that office with the city clerk, elected city clerk that has no requirements to actually work at all if they don't want to. That doesn't happen sometimes.
And so in that respect, if there are issues, like formal issues, then it's really up to the clerk to handle them. And so then you really have no kind of oversight, is that?
Yeah, there is no oversight from the city manager or anybody else. They work for the elected position. Of course, we do provide assistance through HR to help the city clerk through that position, but if you get a city clerk in that position that doesn't want to work with HR, they don't have to, and we have no control over what's going on in that department. Anybody else?
So theoretically, if somebody came into the office, they could fire everybody within their jurisdiction if they so chose, and then higher as well.
Yeah, I think they could. An aspect of this is as each 4 years or each time there is a newly elected city clerk, there's the potential, presently at least, for sort of a new learning curve on, well, what is it like to manage a person? Benefits? What about that? What's the disciplinary? What are the disciplinary rules of the game? And with the greatest respect to all the city clerks I've worked with quite a few of them. There's a varying range of expertise that is brought to that position, and a lot of it's learned on the job, kind of ad hoc, to be very honest. And that's really difficult in an organization that, in all other respects, is ordered, if you will, under a personnel system that's the rules for which are really well known, and the chains of authority and reporting are really well known. So that's what I'm describing is there's sort of a new learning curve each time, and it doesn't necessarily end up with a good professionally organized structure. It's a structure that's personal to the city clerk. Again, with no pejorative of city clerk, they all do their absolute best, but it's usually outside of the standard structure and each time different. And that's, I think, difficult for the rest of the city organization to interface with. As was mentioned, HR, you can use HR, but you don't have to. Every other position, by gosh, if there is a review of an employee, that goes through a system that's known and is uniform for everyone.
Okay. Sorry, one more thing, and then I'll yield the floor. So from a litigation standpoint, if we, are we going to get into any hot water if we restructure per the charter?
No, as I mentioned earlier, the council clearly has the authority to determine, based upon a city manager recommendation, how the employees of the city are structured. And that includes employees in the city clerk's office. Right now, they're structured as under the city clerk, but you have every authority to structure them under the city manager, and that means the city clerk, the charter remains the same, but there are just no employees, quote, under his jurisdiction to be supervised directly in a personnel sense. I think, so there's no exposure there at all. The interface, I think, is still important, and that was mentioned by the city manager and the city clerk in terms of nevertheless, that professional will be in that office and is going to be interfacing with the city clerk and will have to. But that's very different than the system we have now.
Thank you. I have next Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for that description, Mr. Dolan. I think I'm just going to I'm going to take that and just break it down real fast into a real quick point of, we have a single employee that is by all ways, shapes, and forms appears to be a city employee, but is not actually a city employee, is not held to the same standards as other city employees, does not have to follow the same rules and regulations as other city employees. And also could, like you said, could be hired or fired at the will of a person that was elected. So I think it's extremely important that we get that position under the same HR situation that we have the rest of our city employees in. And then another point that I wanted to make is that we keep saying professional, and I want to just clarify that we mean professional city clerk, where Clerk Kirkpatrick is a professional, and he's been a professional businessman for a very long time, and has held very high CEO type positions. And so when we say professional, we just mean like professional city clerk, someone who specifically went into that field along with education, follow-up education, and associations and whatnot. And so I just want to make sure that Clerk Kirkpatrick understands that when we say professional, we're not saying that you're not a professional. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoppe. As a matter of fact, later this year, if I am able to attend the right meetings, I am likely to earn the designation of a certified municipal clerk. But the issue arises when I'm turned out or not reelected. At that point, we have to start over. And as several people have said, the learning curve is steep and the demand to be an expert is immediate, which is a difficult thing to do.
Thank you. Counselor Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to say ditto to everything Councilmember Hoppe just said. And also this conversation and Councilmember Dozman's inquiries to me just highlight that I think it is worth reevaluating that being an elected position in between, like after this position is elected and before the next election cycle. Because, I mean, just for all the reasons just spelled out, and as we've said, we're a much more modern city, and that stability piece is, I think, really what's important to the city. So I know that's not the decision in front of us, but I just wanted to make the connection between Ms. Dozman's, like, I think, excellent line of inquiry and, you know, what that position means both to city staff and to our city as a whole. So still pro number 3.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would like to make note of the fact that Deputy Clerk Eaton is a professional in municipal clerkship, although his expertise is noticed most often in terms of liquor licensing. He is well versed in a number of different areas that municipal clerks deal with. He is a recognized expert by his peers across the state in terms of liquor licensing and liquor licensing law. So what we're talking about here is adding a second professional to the city clerk's office. And duties, responsibilities, et cetera, are to be, you know, worked out in more detail. But I just want to make clear that Mr. Eaton is a professional municipal clerk. Indeed, when I recently took a special tasting permit to one of our largest licensees, I handed the permit to their manager, and the next comment was, Wheat Ridge is very easy to deal with and very helpful in renewing liquor licenses and issuing permits, especially compared to several neighboring jurisdictions where that business also has local liquor licenses. I won't name the cities or the business because it's irrelevant. The fact remains that our reputation for helping people with their liquor licenses is better than most. And that is largely a result of Mr. Eaton's professionalism. And I just wanted to make that clear to everyone. This is not about Robin Eaton. This is about the city clerk's office staffing. And thank you for that.
Well said. Thank you, Clerk Kirkpatrick. And I know that we appreciate Robin's all of his diligent work, and he is good. Yes. Councilor Hoppe, Councilor Holteen. No, Councilor Hoppe. Excuse me. I got the
Thank
H.
you. Thank
H
you,
is
Mr. Mayor.
going.
I'd like to ask for a consensus to move forward to add a professional clerk to the city clerk's office in 2024.
Okay. All right. Looks like we have a consensus to do that. Mr. Goff, is that what you were, the direction, gives you enough direction to move forward?
That's all we need. We appreciate the conversation this evening. Thank you.
Okay. There's no more to proceed on that matter. Then we will go then to our third item, which is reports. And I think Mr. Goff had a staff presentation.
I don't have anything else to say.
Okay. Thank you so much. I will raise hands. Councilor Dozman.
Sorry, I just have a question in regards to, do we need a consensus to restructure that, or does that, the consensus suffice as far as
I think door number
adding?
I think door number 3 gave us all the information that we were looking for.
Yes, I think
Okay.
as long as I don't think Ms. Hoppe said specifically option number 3, but I
Okay.
think that was her intent. Option number 3 is the consensus that gives us what we need.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further elected officials reports? Councilor Holteen, yes.
Thank you. This is not another Happiness Gardens update because not much has changed since the last one. But actually, something that has come to my attention in a couple different ways. I have a friend who had wanted to participate in Ridgefest, and she runs an amazing kombucha brewery that's based in Inglewood, and elected not to participate because the tax licensing requirements were just too much for her as a non-local business. And there are ways to sister up with local businesses, and she actually is the kombucha that's served by Wheelie Bean. But Patrick, I'm wondering, is Boulder offers like a 1 and a 3 day tax license. Is that something we offer here? Patrick
you
or
said that-
Ally, everyone's grabbing their microphones. This has got to be a good question.
Ally, do you want
I was just going to say, we do, actually. Most of the vendors at Carnation Festival, for example, they get it's a temporary event license.
Okay.
And then our staff go out to them, oftentimes. So I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe there was some miscommunication there.
Okay. All right. I will convey
It's a
that.
temporary, it's essentially a temporary business license.
Okay.
For the purpose of remitting sales tax for that event.
For that, okay. All right.
Yeah,
I
so
will
thanks for
let
that
her-
feedback.
Let her know that, and that is good to hear. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So speaking of the Carnation Festival, we're a month away from our 54th annual Carnation Festival. If you haven't already, please sign up for the parade. The registration closes July 29th. Really want to give a shout out to Local Works and their events calendar. I am really digging the events that they put on there, and really want to suggest that other businesses and community service organizations either subscribe to the calendar or add events to the calendar. So this Wednesday, the 12th, we have the Wheat Ridge Farmers Market, which has been going on at Wheat Ridge Poultry and Meats. And then again, we have Yoga on the Green with Kasha Collective from 5:30 to 7:30. And then the 15th, the Grange will be hosting the Wheat Ridge Garden Tour from 9 to 1. And then we have the Wheat Ridge Brewery and Bike Tour. And I believe New Image Brewing is on that tour. So go and have some fun and get a bicycle and go have some brews in Wheat Ridge.
Thank you. Any further elected officials matters or things that we need to discuss before we close our meeting? Councilor Weaver.
I just wanted to clarify, to be careful, if you do get on your bicycle and get some booze, that there are some issues that our chief may want to, let's just make sure we're careful. Thanks. I think we still do have a mounted police bike person.
This is limited construction or consumption. Okay. Anything else? Good warning. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please travel safely through our streets. We will be back a week from tonight at 6:30 for a study session. Confirmation that. I see some heads nodding, I think. So anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We will stand adjourned.